All right, we're live. Oh, we're live. All right. So great to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. Good to be with you.
And I can't believe we've never met.
I know.
Just because we tend to run in circles, people who speak at different conferences. But
it's probably my fault. I mean, technically I live
think it's your fault, yeah.
here, but I'm hardly ever here. So
it's amazing that you live here.
Yeah.
So do you have, because you always travel, so do you have a room and like your stuff, or you just have it all in a suitcase?
Yeah, no, I have a room with all my stuff. It's where I get my mail. I do my laundry. So it's pretty, I got some great books in there. Like if I ever die on the road, somebody needs to go through my room.
I'm sure Scott Harm will do that.
Yeah, he would.
Stay out of his library. Yeah, there was a time I was traveling 9 days a month. That was my limit. I'd set myself because I got a wife and kids. So it was like 9 days a month, never on Sundays, no more than 2 nights at a time. So it would end up being 3 trips a month. But since COVID hit and the channel has taken off, I'm just kind of declining engagements, which has kind of been nice.
That's cool.
Especially because I don't want to get on a plane and wear a mask. I was actually looking up where to buy fake masks last night.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know what's tough for me was, because I travel tons, right? I mean, I think I could literally be the chaplain for American Airlines, which would be pretty sweet. Last year, I grew a honking beard, right?
Yeah, it looked great.
Beard. It was awesome. It was so big. But wearing a mask with that thing was difficult, man. Yeah. Like the breathing, the itchiness, and the whole thing, it was irritating. So I was kind of glad I got rid of the big old beard.
Not to mention the glasses. Like the only pleasure of flying for me is I get to be in one place and read.
Right.
But I can't do it because my stupid glasses fog up.
Totally, man. And I'm putting them down over my nose, and then I get rebuked by the flight attendant. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here?
I know. I hear some are better than others. I hear Southwest is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't fly Southwest that much. I don't like the cattle car
on
seating,
Delta, they just stand by you and watch you as you eat and say, you need to put it up between each bite. Is this ever going to end, do you think?
Yeah, I know. I hope so. I think it's been extended till March, I think, at the moment. So we'll see what happens. But
keep that charade up for a bit.
It's insane.
I thought about, like, what do you think of this? This might be pressing a little too far, but just to get people angry. The mask is to wokeism what the scapular is to Catholicism. It just seems like an identity thing that just shows you're part of the group. You see people wearing them in cars.
That's good and bad, because I'm never taking my scapular off. So, but I do want to take that mask off. So, and I hope they do too at some point.
Yeah. Hey, and also love the cassock.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
We got to praise priests who wear cassocks because they just look so masculine and cool. And
bro, I love it. Like, to me, it's battle attire.
Nice.
I've been called, what person am I in the Matrix before? People, they're not familiar with it. They don't know what it is. I even had somebody call it a dress, and I was like, oh, that's not a dress, man.
Battle attire.
Battle attire, right? The cool thing too is that if you eat too much, it hides it, right? So
I need one of those.
That helps out.
Yeah. So you went to Franciscan.
I did.
What years?
So my religious community moved to Steubenville in 97. So I started in 97.
Okay.
And I transferred in, so I only went 2 years, got my undergrad in 99, then moved away, went to seminary, and then came back. I was actually the house superior of our house here for 6 years, which was awesome. It was fantastic. And then after that is when all the invitations to speak and travel the world and all that came in. And now, I mean, I'm on the road constantly. Yeah.
Well, I was telling you before that I actually don't know a great deal about your story.
Yeah, I know. And I said, what am I doing here?
Well, it's kind of like when people like listen to Catholic podcasts, and Pints with Aquinas is kind of my life. I do this all the time. Like, I haven't heard of that. I'm like, how can you not have heard of that? That's all I have to think about. How is this possible? And you've told this story 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make you have to tell it again, but
no worries. Yeah, I'll give you the nutshell version. Yeah.
Give you the nutshell.
Wow. Okay. So I wasn't raised in a Catholic Christian environment at all. Wasn't baptized. My parents were, complete pagans. And it was a disaster for their marriage. They separated, got divorced. Then my mother remarried. That didn't work out. Got divorced. Then she remarried a third time. My third dad was a nominal Christian, in name only. He didn't practice or anything. But he adopted me, so I got his last name, Calloway, which most people think I'm really good at golf. I'm not. I actually hate the game. But it's kind of cool when I fly through airports. They see my last name, like, Calloway? I'm like, no. And he got me baptized. Well, his parents did, my new grandparents. So I was baptized in the Episcopalian church when I was 10. Didn't mean anything. We never went to church, that stuff. So he was a military officer. So we moved all the time. Ended up in Japan. And I completely lost it over there.
How old were you then?
I think at that time I was 13.
Okay.
Right? And we were living in California before that.
Was that cool for a 13-year-old boy to go
No, it sucked. We were in California. Yeah. California was awesome, right?
Yeah.
It was the 1980s where all the music was, all the girls. Yeah. I was just like, I want to live here for the rest of my days.
Yeah.
Then he said, we're moving to Japan.
So it's not like you were in Ohio and they were like, you want to go to Japan.
Right.
You were in California.
Yeah. Right. So I was like, I'm not going, but I had to. So I got there and immediately got involved with the wrong crowd and eventually ran away from home on the big island of Honshu, the big island of Japan. And I got involved with the Yakuza.
No idea.
Right.
Kind of.
The Japanese mafia.
Right.
Yeah. So serious stuff, man. Right. They don't usually recruit like little white boys, but they use me as a drug mule to run drugs and money to different casinos.
I'm sorry. You have to slow down your story because now I'm totally gripped.
Bro, you don't know this?
I know nothing. I promise.
It's free on YouTube, bro.
Well, and now it is again. So, okay. How did you get involved with the Japanese mafia and... What the?
And I was 15. So, I ran away and I wasn't going to get gainful employment, right? I wasn't going to look for a job. So at that time, if you were mid 1980s, if you were a white boy with long hair and I was growing my hair long, you were Bon Jovi, man. I mean, you were in the band Cinderella or Rat or Poison, right? I mean, that was the 80s. And so I stood out in Japan. So all these girls, were hooking me up with things and they were like, if you want to get money, this is what you got to do. So I started running drugs for this criminal organization. Nobody suspected that. In my backpack, a little white boy had, like the equivalent of like 10,000 US dollars on him in yen, which always like $1 million yen. It sounds awesome, but it's not $1 million. I was living the life, man. But caused an international scene, right? That's not normal. You can't get away with that for long. So I got kicked out of the country, apprehended, thrown in jail, Japanese jail.
How did you get caught?
Well, I ran away from the jail, right? I went to use the restroom and bolted.
No, but how did you get caught? You were a drug mule for these people. When did you first get caught?
So they tapped the phone lines because I was calling back to the military base where my friends were. And I was like, dude, we got girls who want to meet American boys. I got wicked amounts of money. I've got mopeds when we were stealing all this stuff. And they listened to the phone lines and apprehended me at a train station near Yokohama. And that was the first time I ran away, from that as well. So, so eventually I couldn't get away. They literally handcuffed me, not just to myself, but to a military police officer, an MP.
That'll
Big
do it.
Dude, yeah.
Well,
but here's the cool thing, Matt, is through all that insanity, which was, and trust me, this is the G-rated version. My mom had a huge crisis. She was going to counseling. She was on medication for depression, anxiety, all that stuff. None of it was working until a Filipino lady in Japan, married to an American GI, right? Happens all around the world. She said to my mom, you have to go talk to a Catholic priest. And my mom was like, why? Why am I going to do that? But the Filipino woman, if you know Filipino women, they're like green berets in the spiritual life. They'll take you down, right? They mean business. You better do what they say. So she was insistent with my mom. My mom was like, fine, shut up, I'll go. She went and talked to a Catholic priest. I didn't know any of this. That priest changed my mom's life. Told my mom about the Eucharist, about confession, about the saints, all that stuff. My mom is Italian. Lucita Bianco is my mother's maiden name. How she was not Catholic, totally weird, but wasn't. Somehow it was like when that priest told her about Catholicism, he was like, he turned on Catholicism, like on, in her Italian DNA, And she was like, this is amazing. I didn't know that. So my mom had to leave the country before I was caught. That's how bad it was. They were still looking for me when my mom had to leave and find a place to relocate in the States. So when I was apprehended, I was sent back to the U.S. They couldn't do anything like as far as like incarceration or charges because I hadn't done anything on American soil. So it was a tricky situation. So I went to my first rehab.
Wow. How upset was your dad?
Oh my gosh, totally. He never got promoted again in the military. He had to retire early.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your relationship with him like?
Back then it was horrible.
Yeah. And then after this didn't help?
No, not at all. Now I love the guy. I mean, he's my Joseph. Yeah, he's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you weren't just running drugs for people. You were doing them drugs.
Oh, big time. Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, you pinch off your own stash, So, so I come back. I go to my first rehab, and that was in Pennsylvania, and it was a disaster. I mean, I learned how to do more drugs in the rehab, but through all that, my mom became Catholic. My stepdad, became Catholic, and my brother Matthew. I thought they had joined a cult. Literally, I thought they've Jim Jonesed it, man. They're going to go to Uganda, drink Kool-Aid, and off themselves. I don't know what the Catholic Church is about, but they're weird. I thought Catholicism is anti-science, anti-woman, antiquated, male-dominated hierarchical institution that hates everything and just has rules. That's what I thought. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted nothing to do with it. And that's when I couldn't even live with him, because my mom was so super religious that I could not stand to be around her. So I ended up following a band called the Grateful Dead. And that's when my hair was like all the way down to my belt, right? Got a tattoo called Steal Your Face on my shoulder. I don't even remember getting it. I woke up and my shoulder hurt, and there it was. Doing acid and mushrooms and heroin and coke and smoking crack, going to all these Dead shows, which I never even got into most of them, you know, and ended up in another rehab in Philadelphia. It was
by your own choice?
No, I OD'd on crack in the streets of Philadelphia, and they, you know, didn't know what to do. So they put me in this place, which was a rehab, but also a psychiatric unit. Still there. It's Charter Fairmont Institute. You can look it up. It's still there. I was there for 6 weeks, and oh my gosh, it was a disaster.
Why?
I didn't want to be there, and the method was laughable. And I don't mean to make light of, these things can work, right? And they can be beneficial. Yeah. But it was a Band-Aid on a spiritual problem. It didn't offer anything more than just make a good showing of sobriety, because somebody's putting the bill for this, and we got to act like we know what we're doing. So here's the Dixie cup of meds, take it and cooperate with the program. Oh man, you know. And I was forced to go there anyway, so I didn't want to be there.
Did your parents force you to go?
Yeah, and like the authorities, because they were like, if he doesn't do something, we can press charges for vagrancy or some other kind of stuff, and it was crazy. Wow. So when I got out of number 2 rehab, man, my parents are going to church every day.
What?
Yeah. I thought, you guys are nuts. Who does this, right? It's bad enough that people go once a week. You're going every day. And they had enrolled my brother in a Catholic school, which in my mind, right, he was being beat up by a bunch of penguins. That's what I thought nuns were, right? They're penguins, you know, who just whip you with a ruler across your face and tell you to obey the commandments. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Well, I continued to live my crazy life. And then I had what I call the divine 2x4. Rock bottom. And I've been there many times, but this was absolute rock bottom. I was even thinking about taking my own life, you know, just ending it all. Because I have some friends who did that. They're not here anymore. And as I'm passing through my parents' house on this occasion, thinking about ending my life, I picked up a book that my parents had on their bookshelf about Marian apparitions. No idea what this is, right? Clueless about this. And I start to read this thing, and I'm just like, what is this? Why have I not heard of this? Because I was into things like Sasquatch and Nessie. I was going to go to Scotland and drag that stinking beast out of that lake, right? Why can't nobody find this thing? I was into those specters and ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm like, what is this stuff? Who's this Virgin Mary? And it blew me away, man. And most of my sins, my predominant fault, I would say, would be lust, right? Most of the times I was drinking and smoking weed and all that was just to score girls, and doing the crazy stuff just to score girls. So there's a saint who says, I think it might be St. Bernard of Clairvaux, somebody says, the ways that a man sins are the ways that a man will be purified, right? So all of a sudden, I'm learning about this beautiful woman who's a virgin. I didn't know any virgins, right? And she's saying that she's the mother of Jesus. And she seems to be so beautiful, comes from a place called heaven. What is this stuff? What are these concepts? To me, the stairway to heaven was the same thing as the highway to hell. Neither one of them were real, but you sing about it, everybody talks about it. So all of a sudden, it's being presented as though it's real. And I'm like, what is this stuff? And all I knew was that this woman seemed to be so ravishingly beautiful. And I didn't feel like I wanted to do anything foul with her. Mm-hmm. It was a kind of beauty I've never encountered before. And it was getting to my manhood, right? So long story short, man, the next day I went and talked to a Catholic priest, and my life began to radically change, man. I mean, look, this is what I look like.
Yeah, you can hold it up for that camera there.
You know, and I'm not a narcissist, by the way, but I do carry a big picture of myself around the world.
Nice.
If I pulled out a pocket size one at conferences, nobody'd be able to see it. So,
right.
So that was me when I was 17, right? Mm-hmm. And when I'm having this experience, by the way, I was 21. So my hair was longer than that it's shown here. So I go to the Catholic priest.
I'm so fascinated by the story. I know you keep saying you're going to give me the short version, but I, if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of just open it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you go to your parents' house. They're going to daily mass. Your brother Matthew, is he participating in the faith at this point?
Yeah. He's in Catholic school as well.
You take this book off the shelf. Are your parents home? Are they seeing you read this book?
This is the amazing thing. No, my dad's on an aircraft carrier halfway out around the world, wherever he was at the time. He had to get out of the military early because of me, but he still had one more deployment to do. Mom is there, but she's asleep. It's at night. In the morning, she's coming down the steps. Here I am, long hair at the bottom of the steps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, I couldn't even say it. Right. And I was trying to formulate that I wanted to talk to a Catholic priest. And she's like, you know what she says to me? We joke about this to this day. She looks at me and she goes, yeah, right. Right? She thought I was trying to like pull a manipulative, thing on her. I'm like, no, I'm like, what the heck is this? Is this what you guys, who's this Virgin Mary stuff? What is going on here? And she ran to the phone, punched in 7 digits, like 6 a.m., man. Wow. And they were on a military installation in Norfolk, Virginia, Navy base. And she's trying to set up a meeting between me and some dude named Father. Right? I don't know what that is. And it doesn't work. She tries another one, doesn't work. So I, of my own volition, knew right inside the main gate was one of those things, right? A Catholic chapel. So I said, Mom, isn't there one? She looks at me and she goes, run, Donnie, run. Right? I did. I threw the book down the hallway. I tie-dyed. You could have got a contact high off of me if you stood close enough. I mean, I was constantly baked. So I run across that military base, totally out of wind when I got there. And the name of it, I'd never stopped long enough to see the name of this thing. And it's still there to this day, Our Lady of Victory Chapel. How perfect, right? So, but I don't do church. I'm like, I'm not going in there. It's good enough I'm near one of these things. There's traffic. This can't be public. So I see another building that says Chaplain's Office. So I go over there. Seriously, it's like 6:15 in the morning. I walk in, long-haired freak in the doorway, and I yell out, Catholic priest, right? I freaked that joint out.
I bet.
Heads are popping out of cubicles and everybody's looking at me like, what part of the fence did this hippie jump? Who's this bizarre looking creature? I don't look like I belong on a military installation. So I'm like, hello, I see you. So finally some dude comes over to me, white Navy uniform on. He's like, can I help you? I'm like, I need a priest. And he's like, who are you? I'm like, don't worry about it. So then he goes
Unimportant.
Yeah, don't worry. So he comes back with another guy and he says, I'm Father John. That means nothing to me. So he's like, can I help you? I'm like, I need a priest. And he goes,
I'm Father John.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what that, because in my mind, I'm thinking you should look like Moses or something, right? If we're going to do religion,
okay. Yeah.
What do you guys look like? So he says he's one. And then I go, dude, I got to confess. So he's excited. So we go to his little cubicle, but he's scared. I can see it. And he like pulls his chair like a little bit out the hallway.
I know not a Catholic.
No, but he doesn't know that, right? And I didn't know you had to be one to do this. So
but you knew about confession. How did you know about that?
In the book, it talked about if you want peace, you got to go to confession. You got to get a Catholic. That's why I went to the church and everything, right?
Yeah.
So, I started telling this guy stuff, foul, disgusting, perverse things that I'd done since childhood. And I'm so ashamed. I can't even look at him. I'm looking at the carpet and I'm going so fast and I don't hear nothing. So I look up and he's like, you did what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, hold on. And that's when it got real.
Yeah.
He goes, when's the last time you went to confession? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. And he goes, high school? Has it been a long time? And I'm like, he goes, okay, well, you're a Catholic, right? And I'm like, oh, heck no. Dude, he got so mad. He was like, yeah, he was like, you have to be a Catholic. And I'm like, I don't know.
Why is he getting mad at you?
Well, I think he just assumed that I was a Catholic, right?
I'm sure he did, but you're just pouring out your heart to this point.
Right. Yeah, totally. But I kind of understood. So I'm like, dude, I don't know. So he goes, all right, hold on. What's up? And I'm like, dude, I read this book, freaking me out, bro. There's a virgin. She says she's the mother of Jesus. You know about this? Right? And he's looking at me like, oh, Lord, where you come from? So he's like, look, I got a busy day. I need to go celebrate Mass. Dude, to me, you're going to go rejoice in gravity, neutrons, and protons. You're going to celebrate Mass.
I see.
I don't know the lingo.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at him like a deer in headlights. And he goes, you don't know what that is? And I'm like, So he goes, all right, do you know where the chapel is? I said, I saw it. And he goes, go over there. I'm going to go be over in a little bit and do some stuff. And then we'll meet back here after. And I'm like, really? Because I'm thinking, I just told that dude sinful things, but also criminal things. I'm thinking that's his way of getting me out. He's going to be like 911, yo, get over here quick, So I'm like, don't bust me, man. And he goes, no, we're good. So he goes, as I start to leave to go to the chapel, he actually says this. This is hilarious. But I totally understand. He goes, hey, do me a favor. When you go in, sit in the back, okay? right? Dude, I look like a total freak, right? So I'm like, yeah, I get it, man. So I go over there, I open the door. The door slams behind me, and I turn around. Who's in that church? Only 5 people right near the front door in the front pew, 5 Filipino women, right? I'm dead meat, man. One took down my family. You know what I mean? I got like an army up in here. You couldn't get me to the back fast enough, right? I went to that back, sat down, and then all of a sudden, if you're familiar with Filipino culture, which I am. I've been
once.
Yeah. So, okay, it's amazing.
I remember
people.
having cold fish for breakfast.
Yeah.
And that they drive like maniacs and that they were the most hospitable people I've ever met.
They're
Those
amazing
3 things,
people.
that's all.
They're amazing people.
Yeah.
But it's a very matriarchal culture, right? The women dominate and they just tell everybody else what to do. You got to do. And the men are like, fine. So there, sure enough, was this little Filipino unit with a leader. And she went up to this thing that looked like a table, fired up 2 candles, came back, and she pulled a necklace out of her purse. And she starts with this Tagalog incantation to this mystical boat hanging from the ceiling. It's a naval chapel. So there's a ship hanging from the ceiling. So I'm like, what is it? I'm in the back. All I hear, and no offense to any Filipinos who are listening or watching, salamat po to you and your people. I love you people, right? But this is what white boy in the back heard. It was like unintelligible gibberish. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
The other 4 reciprocated with holy amen, right? I can make out a hail something, a holy something, amen.
Yeah.
In the between, I don't know what they're saying. Then this woman turns around to freak white boy in the back, holds her necklace up, right? And jingles it. And she yells to me across the pew. She goes, young man, would you like to pray the next decade, please? Next decade, right? Dude.
Accent down.
Dude, I dropped out of high school, right? I wasn't intelligent at the time, but I knew a decade meant 10 years, you know? So I'm looking at this woman like, you're a freak, man. Like, what? I didn't even know what to say. So she tried to clarify. She goes, it's the second sorrowful mystery. I'm like, I thought I walked into like a Wiccan coven and they were doing some weird stuff up at this ain't church, you know? So she seemed disappointed in me, and they turned around, they kept doing this thing. It was like sold to the highest bidder because they were flying. Hey, better get sold, you know? Crazy stuff. Then they stop. The dude comes in, but now he doesn't look like a military officer. He's dressed like a hippie. Seriously. With like a flower on his little robe, and he's like, morning to the women. And I'm like, what the? And he goes up to something and he's saying stuff, but it was Charlie Brown. You ever been to a Catholic church where they need to get the bunny microphone, get some batteries in the mic? Yes. It was in the name, Mary. Yeah, what? Right? I couldn't understand them. Now I can. He's white. I can't even understand him. And it was bizarre, man. So I'm thinking about bailing. I'm like, I'm out of here. Yeah, this is crazy. But I'm like, oh, all right. He said we'll talk. So all of a sudden, now I'm not Padre Pio. I'm not a mystic. I've never had anything like this happen since. That dude went up to that table. It was at the altar, of course. Bent over, there on their knees. He picks up a little white circle, about that big. And he says, with total focus, and the microphone there worked, thank God. And he said this, man, take this, all of you, and eat of it. This is my body. And he held it up like he was showcasing it. Dude, I'm in the back and I'm thinking, you're a madman, bro. That he just told us that that's his body and we got to eat it. That's what I heard. And he was like, da-na, like showcasing it. And I'm like, what? And it was like he stood there for a long time. And it's as though somebody came in and pressed pause in the room. And then I heard a voice. And this is what I mean by I'm not a mystic or anything. Mm. And it wasn't spoken to my ear. It was spoken to me. And the voice said to me, worship. And then, Matt, I had what I can only call like an infusion of knowledge. I knew what that man had in his hands was God. I didn't know lingo. I didn't know Blessed Sacrament, Holy Communion, none of that. Then he came back, or no, he remained there. He picked up what I thought was a really sweet looking medieval goblet, right? I had no idea what this was. And he said, take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is my blood. And he held it up. I heard the same voice, worship. And I knew that God was there. Then that dude got up, came down. The women, they like met in the middle. And I saw that man say to each one of those women, one by one, the body of Christ. He didn't say my body. What the voice told me was true. It is Jesus Christ, right? Then I saw him put God inside them. They put out their tongue, and I saw him place God on their tongue. Matt, do you know how many things I put on my tongue that look just like that? Liquid Lucy, we call it, a little acid trip. Exactly like that, right? So many dead shows I went to searching for, meaning where love never fades away and all that. And I'm watching this and I'm like, there's no way that everything that I've been searching for in my life for meaning is here in a Catholic church. No way. He did the same thing with the chalice, right? They drank from it. I saw this. Do you know how many chalices I drank from? Tons, right? Take a sip, pass it around to your family and the dead, right? Insane. So I'm like, what? Then he did something. He left. They left. And there I am alone with God in a box with a red light next to it, because he seemed to have God still there, right? I didn't know the terminology, so I'm speaking as though I'm living it, right? So I'm like, okay. I am so freaked out by this that I get up from the back pew, I walk behind me, and I hit the wall. There's a curtain with a sign, and it says confession, infusion. Didn't hear a voice, but I knew what that was. Because I've been to the hospital a ton of times. I get kidney stones like every 5 years. I'm begging for death, nuts. I've broken bones and shattered this, and everything. So I've been to the hospital a lot. Every time in a hospital, you go behind a curtain and your life is saved, right? I knew this is a church, more than a church. This is God's rehab. This is God's hospital. I knew it. I went to that priest's office. I told him what happened. Dude, he was happy, but he wasn't exactly delighted, because I told him I heard a voice, and he's like, yay. I'm like, dude, I'm serious. I'm not having an acid trip. I know what those are like. I heard a voice, bro. You made God. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the white thing, dude. And then you gave it to them? And he's like, yes, that's, and I'm like, bro, I'm freaking out here. So he didn't exactly know what to do. He gave me a picture of Jesus, a painting of Jesus, a crucifix, which I still have to this day.
Wow.
That was a long time ago now, like 30 years. And a portrait, this is hilarious, a portrait of his grandpa.
That's weird.
Random, right?
Like, you can keep that. But these two are great.
Totally. Part of me wanted to say that, but I'm like, I better shut up and just do what he says, right? But it was a pudgy looking dude who had a little white hat on. Look at like
stop it.
Yeah, no, seriously. And it looked like he'd eaten one too many cookies. He was a little chubby looking fellow. So I'm like, whatever. So I go back to my mom's house. I tear down Bob Marley. I threw away every Mrs. January, February, and March issue hidden under the floorboards. All my resin scrapers, get that one last hit. Chucked everything. I hung up Jesus, and Grandpa in the room.
And for those at home, Grandpa was who?
John Paul II.
Right.
Right.
I didn't get that until you said
Yeah. So, and then I'm like, now what? Right? He told me to come back tomorrow. I could royally jack this thing up with one phone call.
What did your mom say when you came back doing this?
She observed the whole, to this day, she testifies to the whole thing of what happened. I come back with these items. I threw everything in the room into like 5 big black hefty bags, not even into the trash, out the front door and just into the yard. Instinctively hung these things up. And then I'm thinking, what do I do? So I'm like, I think I need to pray, right? So I had hung that portrait painting of Jesus up above the dresser where I used to have a big old Bob Marley thing smoking a big old spliff, right? So now there's Jesus. I get on my knees and I'm like, I need you. I think you're real. And I want you. Dude, what happened next? I can only call like divine detox and romance. God flooded my soul with so much mercy, because I was actually in shock that the image was like this with a heart on fire. I thought he would be looking at me like, you freak little pervert. I'm going to slap you into an eternity, a lake of fire, you sick little, right? But he wasn't. And if you're God, you know everything about me. So you know all the horrible things I've done with myself, with others. And I lost it, man. I started crying like a human being can't cry. I had so much liquid coming out of my face. It was pouring off my chin, right? And that lasted all day. I got back to the house. It wasn't even 8 o'clock, I don't think. My mom testifies to this. I was in that room all day. When I finally came to my senses, so to speak, it was totally mystical experience. I got up and I laid down in the love seat, because there wasn't even a bed for me there. I wasn't there enough to have a bedroom. It was a storage closet with a love seat in it. I laid down and tucked into it. And then this happened. Now, I pray this never happens to me again. And I say this being a priest 19 years now. The devil came, right? I didn't believe in the devil until that point. A creature came into the room and started to manifest itself, like literally take on a physical form. Matt, I was so terrified that I couldn't even move. And if anybody's ever had like sleep paralysis, right? I have that occasionally. It's a terrifying experience, but this, magnify it by a quadrillion. This was a living creature that wanted me. And
what did it look like?
It was fuzzy. It wasn't like it was clear. And it's not like I'm seeing you.
Yeah.
It was just a presence that started to, like looking through a glass type of thing, or that marble glass, or whatever you call it. but it was there and it was starting to get clearer. I was so terrified, I had to close my eyes. I was absolutely petrified and I couldn't do anything. Man, I wasn't a Satanist. I didn't go to like some seance around a pentagram and slash a chicken's throat and sprinkle blood. No way. I never, but I had dabbled in like Ouija boards. Not because I even believed in it. I was the one moving it, trying to get the girl, like date him, I'm spelling it out. Like, yeah, it's stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
But tarot cards and all that kind of stuff and just stupid stuff. But the devil, I think, thought that I belonged to him, right? As the songs say, running with the devil, all those songs I used to rock out on. And I was so terrified because I'm like, what am I going to do? Can I punch the devil? Right? Am I going to take a swing at the devil? That's not going to work. And I couldn't because I was so paralyzed with fear. I did the only thing I knew how to do. From my soul, I screamed out, not audibly, in my soul, Mary! You know what happened? Annihilated. The devil was completely obliterated, man. And I experienced the most amazing peace that I've never experienced to this day and probably will not this side of eternity. And then I heard a voice, a woman's voice. Again, I'm no mystic. It hasn't happened since. Mm-hmm. The most pure, feminine, motherly voice spoken to me, not to my ear, and it was like trickling over me, and it said this, Donnie, I'm so happy. Nobody calls me Donnie but my mom. Nobody. Who is it? It's not my mom. My mom's in the house somewhere doing whatever. It was just one I never knew. It's the mother of Jesus Christ, right? By telling me that, she's telling me she's my mom. I went to sleep that night so safe and secure. Like the devil couldn't touch me because I was in the arms of Mary. The next day, I go to the Catholic priest and I told him, sign me up. Sign me up, homie, right? What do we got to do here? And he goes, that's not how it works. I'm like, what do you mean it's not how it works? He goes, you got to go to classes once a week for like 6 months at least. I'm like, what? He said, there's no short program. I'm like, fine. When are they? He's like, Tuesdays. I'm like, great. Put me down. It began. The next day, I went, got my hair cut, lost all my power.
Why did you do that? Why did you cut your hair?
I knew I had to change.
Yeah.
Right? The rehabs are right when they say you have to change people, places, and things. They get that right for sure. The cords that I couldn't cut, right, in the past, God came in and Our Lady and just said, yeah, that'll be enough. Snip, cut, done, right? Yeah. All my friends, I became a dork. I was no longer a chick magnet, so to speak.
Yeah.
The girls weren't attracted me. I lost my hair. Back in those days, long hair, you were a cool dude, right?
Yep.
I lost it, man. Nobody wanted to hang out with me. What I couldn't do, God did. And everything, I got a job, right? I mean, I changed my language. I started going to, dude, I would be at church in the mornings before the Filipinos.
That's pretty intense.
For a white boy, yeah. I mean, I was so in love that at the end of the day, I would go to daily mass for my lunch break. I wouldn't receive communion because I wasn't Catholic. At the end of the day, I would go to the Catholic chapel to watch them close the doors. Right? When you're young, when you've got this young romance, you hang up. Right? I couldn't get enough of Jesus. I'd be looking through the window. I'll see you tomorrow. I was madly in love, dude.
I don't want to get into my story, and I don't know how much of it you know, but that was me too. I was 17 years old, conversion to Christ. I would skip class, go sit in the chapel, and I was just in love.
Yeah.
And I looked weird, like people in love look.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And it was so freeing because I was going through that divine detox in God's Rehab, which is the Catholic Church. And then when I did become Catholic, oh my goodness, right? I mean, the graces that were being given, the medication was free, the best meds ever, the best counseling, psychotherapy possible in the sacraments, the teachings of the church, the wisdom of the saints. I entered into fasting, which I was doing before I became Catholic in that phase. Prayer squared, right? The ability to transform your life, God to transform your life through prayer and fasting. Holy moly.
Was it like such an infusion of grace that you found it easy to avoid those former sins during that period of time?
Yeah, during that time. I call it the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, that was that was true of me too. It was almost like I wasn't aware that I was even being tempted. That wasn't even a thing.
That's right.
After it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The honeymoon's over and now it's on to the commitment and sacrifice of it.
Yeah. Golly. What was your mum and dad and brother like during this phase? Was she thinking that this was maybe a phase or that?
My mom didn't, but my dad did. Because remember, he was on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And he was out for like a 6-month deployment. So she's writing him letters saying, honey, you're not going to believe what's happened, to Donnie. And he was writing back like, I don't. And then when he came back and when I became Catholic, because my baptism had been valid as an Episcopalian church when I was 10. So I was just confirmed and everything, First Holy Communion. I mean, we all were crying. It was just, it was amazing.
Yeah. Did you make any friends your age during this time who were Catholic?
I did, yeah. And that was interesting because they were Filipino. And one of them was a Filipino girl that I was like super attracted to because I'm like, oh man, she's like the dream wife. You know, she's beautiful. She wants to have babies. You know, she's super Catholic.
She wants to cook for me.
Everything, you know, except balut. I don't do balut, that little chicken egg thing. Ugh,
I don't know what that is.
I like my eggs chicken cooked, you know.
Okay.
So that was like a little, I wouldn't call it a distraction because nobody had bad intentions or anything. But she ended up becoming a nun. So it was kind of funny. Yeah. So, but yeah, I got some good friends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Golly, it's amazing. My mum was meeting with my bishop because she thought I was brainwashed.
Wow.
After World Youth Day, Rome, that's where I went. That's where I had that experience.
No
Isn't that
way.
nuts?
Dude,
like, I think she was more concerned. Before I was like dressed all in black.
Yeah.
I'd write these like suicide poems hanging up on my wall just to cry for attention. It was nothing that serious, I don't think. But
wow.
Isn't that funny, eh?
That's right, because we're about 10 years different, right?
I'm 38.
I'm 49.
Yeah.
Wow.
Golly, man.
Yeah.
Gee, isn't that crazy that I didn't know any of that story?
Yeah. Where you been, man?
I don't know.
Dude, I'm nobody, man. Trust me. I mean, I don't know why.
Do you ever feel a lot of pressure to be super holy because you have that? Because you know what's, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you hear of priests who've had these profound pasts,
right?
And they fall off the wagon at the height of their career. Right. I shouldn't say career, their apostolate. And God bless them. I mean, any of us are just as susceptible to that. It's just that we're not on a pedestal.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
It has not been easy. I can say that for sure. Because the pressure is definitely there. And I'm still human. I haven't crossed the finish line yet, right? Do I get tempted? Totally, right? All that stuff. I live in a very material world and I still struggle with all kinds of stuff. Thank God for confession, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a terrifying thing for me because that one passage in scripture, those who are given much, much is expected. I'm like, dang it. Like, I've been given a lot, Lord. I think what helps me a lot is being in a religious community. Right? Although I do travel a lot, I'm very connected to the community. So I'm not just like going rogue and doing my own thing. That is really important because that's where you can get real dangerous, right? When you're just off and doing your own thing completely. And then also just the whole, like with the social media stuff that we have today, like I got a Facebook thing and I post stuff on St. Joseph every day. So people can kind of keep in touch. I respond to people as much as I can. It's hard, private messages and things like that. So I'm not like some elusive, hidden secret thing. You know, it's like everything is out there for everybody to see. Now, the first few years of my priesthood were the toughest.
How so?
Because I didn't know how to manage all that. You know what I mean? When people are inviting me to everything, to speak, to do this, massive amounts of food being pushed in front of me. And I'm like, sure, right? I gained weight. My prayer life suffered, everything, my sleep, all of that. And then about 5 years into my priesthood, I said, you know what? If I have to upset people and their culture and say, look, I love you people, but I can't eat all this. I need to be back and done by 9 p.m.
Yeah.
I need to pray. I need to sleep.
Yeah.
They understand, right? And once I got that under control, now it's like a smooth, cool machine. Yeah. So.
You know, Christopher West, I was talking to him about traveling and speaking, and he said, like, it cannot not screw you up. Just having any amount of fame, which is a gross word to have to use in the church, but you know what I mean? You're on a stage, there's lights, people are, he said, it cannot not screw you up.
Yeah.
It's just true, isn't it?
I think he's right. I mean, that's where you have to stay grounded. And
how do you do that? Because people who aren't grounded probably don't know they're not grounded. So how do we know that we're grounded?
Yeah, I mean...
Other people in your life, I guess, if you listen to them.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the one thing about like my religious community. The guys know me, right? Nobody knew me for like 10 years. I wasn't on the speaking circuit. Remember, I dropped out of high school. So my formation, I had to get regular college, then seminary. And I lived with all these brothers. They know me. They know my idiosyncrasies, my oddities and all that. So when I come home, I'm nobody to them.
Yeah.
I'm no rock star to them, and that's good.
Yeah.
Right. And I hang out with them. We watch Doctor Who. We just, whatever, stuff like that. Then there's also, I know my own personal stuff. Like, do I want to be a saint? I do, totally, right? But definitely a work in progress. I mean, I'm a stupid sinner, man. I go to confession a lot. I make a lot of mistakes. So I know, like, in the Filipino culture, for example, maybe you're familiar with this. It's so funny. When they want a priest to bless them, they literally grab your hand and push it to their forehead. It's how they get a priest to bless. You don't do this so much. They touch your hand because your hands are holy to them, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. But I remember one time somebody saw that at a conference. The Filipino lady grabbed my hand, as they often do, and just put it to her forehead. The lady comes up to me, a white lady, and she goes, "Look at you. How arrogant. You think you're some king or something, act like these are your servants." And I'm like, huh? And she's like, "Look what you did." And I'm like, "I didn't do that." I said, "That's their culture." And she was like, "No, you're one of those priests, And I'm like, I didn't do a thing, Oh, wow. So sometimes you take a lot of criticism and people can be pretty rough because they'll come up to you. Like, imagine this, Matt. Like, you're married. Imagine if I came up to you and said, I know that almost half of marriages end in divorce, so don't jack it up. I'm really rooting for you. I'm going to pray for you. It's really hard when people come up to me as a priest and say, I know so-and-so really messed it up. Don't become like him,
Yeah.
It's not encouraging.
Yeah, what's encouraging is I got a good friend who actually, well, I don't think he'll mind me saying, Mark, I'm going to say it in my American accent, Mark Hart.
Mark Hart? Of course, the Bible guy, Bible geek.
I love Mark. Yeah. He's such a lovely guy. Yeah. He texted a priest friend who is popular, online, and said, "I just want you to know, like, if you ever find yourself like with a whore doing crack off her back or something," he probably didn't use those words, but he's like, "You can always call me, and I would love you." Oh. And the guy wrote back and said he was in tears, But like, that's the kind of love we got to show our priests. Yeah. But I've started doing that just to freak people out. Like, my fellow priests, I just want you to know, like, if you ever hook up with a Sheila, and you abandon the priesthood, like, you could come to me and you could stay in our guest room, and I would love you. Right. Because I know that I'm disgusting, and I don't have any doubts that you are also disgusting without the grace of God. By you, I mean the priest and you. Yeah. So it's. Yeah, this idea that there are like super priests or super evangelists who are somehow significantly different in their nature is a lie.
Yeah, I'm not a guru, and unfortunately with social media, they call it having fans. I hate that. I don't have fans, I have friends, right? But people will come up to me and they'll say, "Father, I'm a fan. I've been a big fan for years." And I try to change it. Yeah. You're a friend, right? I'm not a guru, man. I'm not, I want to bring you to Jesus, not about me.
Yeah, right? I'm your father.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and it can be hard when the spotlight is on you and people have seen your videos or read your books, and then you come into a place and they want your autograph and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it can be hard not to go to your head, but at the end of the day, I put my pants on just like everybody else does. Right? I'm trying to cross that finish line just like everybody else is. And so, I remember Scott Hahn giving a talk in Canada, and people were around him asking for autographs, and somebody said, like, "Can you sign my shirt or something?" Yeah. And he declined, but he did it in such a charitable way. He said, "Maybe there's something more appropriate I could sign," or something like that. But because it makes sense. Like, if someone comes up to you or Scott or somebody and is like, "Can you sign?" You're like, "No, this is not about me." That's just offensive. Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to do it like that. Yeah. No father would do that, right? So the funny one is like photographs, because I'm not terribly big like into the photograph thing, but certain cultures are, like Filipinos.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, right?
I love how much we've talked about Filipinos.
I love Filipinos, man. I totally do. But wow, they love their pictures, and you never get one. It's always one more photo, right? And it just, once one sees it doing, you got a line of 200,
Have you ever spoken in the Philippines?
Oh, many times.
They must love you there.
It's a riot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Last time I was there for a month. And lost like 7 pounds because I was sweating like crazy, right? But they don't keep schedules, right? So when I got there, they had no itinerary set. Okay. And they're like,
"We'll figure it out."
Yeah. And they're like, "Father, you're going to speak at this university, then we're going to speak to the police academy, then this parish, and then, in one day." And I was there for a month. So I was like,
bless you.
How am I going to keep this pace up, right? Yeah. This is insanity. Like trains, boats, and automobiles. We were going to every place and lost 7 pounds, got sick. And then when I left, I was like, "See you next time." I'm like, "It's going to be a while."
The last time I was there, the most insightful thing anybody has ever said about me came from a Filipino woman driving me and Sarah Swafford back to the airport. And it's kind of offensive, but it's really insightful. She's like, "Matt, you are like," and forgive the accent, "you are like a phone with many apps. Very exciting, but dies quickly." And it's exactly true. Like I told my wife, she's like, yes, that is you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honest?
It's so true. I turn into a zombie after much. Like I get really excited. Let's do it. Yeah. I can keep that up for an hour, and then I'm like, I got to go home. So I'm always doing the Irish goodbye at parties.
Yeah. I'm kind of like that too, actually. Believe it or not. I don't know. Maybe I'm an introvert more.
I think I am.
Yeah. I can be by myself in a car with somebody for a 7-hour drive and say nothing. Totally at peace. And yet they think something's wrong. Like I'm mad. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. So MIC. This is the order you joined right from the get-go, huh?
Yep.
So I don't think I ever really heard of them until I started seeing some of the books you and other priests are putting out.
Right.
How did you first encounter them?
Oh, this is hilarious. So I didn't know what to do with my discernment, right? So I just knew I loved Our Lady. She brought me to Jesus. So I'm like, well, diocesan priests, cool, but I don't know. I just think I want to be like super Marian. So there was this book, I think it still is around. You can send in postcards to religious communities. You lick a stamp, and you get information back. So I sent in so many, got stacks of information back. So I was like, I was overwhelmed. I said, all right, I love Our Lady. Anyone that's got Mary's name in the title, right? Tons of those. So I was like, that didn't help much. So I said, all right, let's see what else. So I looked at one and it said this, the technical name now. The Congregation of Marian Fathers of the Immaculate Conception of the Most Blessed Virgin Mary, 3 times. So I was like, cha-ching, right? That's the one,
okay,
baby.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about them. Thank God they weren't some liberal cray-cray.
This is them.
Yeah.
Did you see how little I know?
You really don't know much.
I really should have done zero homework before my interviews. You're a priest. Wow. Wow, yeah, you're not kidding, man. Wow, that's very Marian. Okay.
Yeah. So I visited them. And they were awesome. I was like, these guys love Our Lady, and they spread divine mercy. I'm like the poster child for divine mercy, right? So they somewhat reluctantly said, yeah, with my past, they were like, if we do accept you, it's going to be a very long formation. And it was 10 years it took me. But I needed that. I definitely needed it. So yeah, God provided complete providence for that because unfortunately, I mean, there are a lot of communities that are, very left, very crazy with what they're pushing. I would have never made it in one of those. So thanks be to God.
Yeah, especially maybe, it feels like it's less so, does it?
What,
does it? Liberal kind of religious communities than maybe back in the 80s and 90s?
I don't think so.
No?
Not my experience. Yeah. Sadly.
Well, maybe to put it a different way, I don't know many Catholics are being drawn to religious orders that are left-leaning.
That is true. Yeah. Thanks be to God.
They're all kind of dying out. Yeah. I was really attracted to the Friars of the Renewal. I saw a picture of a friar in a World Youth Day Canada book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he just looks so cool.
I know, totally.
And I just wanted to join them.
Yeah.
And there were so many Franciscan communities that it took me a while to find them, but I went and stayed with them and stuff like that. But I remember a Capuchin saying to me once, and it was really helpful advice. He said, don't be afraid if you feel you're being drawn to a religious community for superficial reasons. He's like, the reason people are drawn to women is usually for superficial reasons, but you want that to develop.
Right on.
That really helped me because I was afraid. I just want to look cool. I want to grow a beard and wear that thing.
Right.
But I thought that was great advice.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice, actually. I mean, if I could join another religious community, CFRs are awesome. I love them, right? Like straight out of Lord of the Rings stuff, the look. Love that look. But my favorite habit of all habits is the Dominican habit.
Is it?
Right? When they're decked out with that.
Yeah, the black thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like Inquisition is on, baby. It just looks awesome. Where's your horse and spear? It's just awesome.
Yeah.
But it's a superficial thing, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Right? And it's called to something deeper. So
yeah, I like that. So I just kind of throw that out there for those listening who might even be afraid to acknowledge that the reason they're finding themselves drawn to religious order is for those superficial reasons because it feels kind of superficial. But to let that develop. All right.
Yeah.
Man, MIC, so 10 years. Was that tough?
Very tough. Was it
tough because of your past, in addition to why it's tough already?
Yeah, it was tough on every level. I mean, it was academically tough, right? Because I wasn't used to that. But then it was also, I had to socially mature, right? Thank God, I didn't go out and start evangelizing right away because I would have been like, this is the catechism, it'll set you free and you will like it, right? I didn't have a very good method. I remember I did have a few, when I would go home to visit my family during the breaks, like some people, hometown hero, one of our own is seminarian now. Let's have him speak to the prayer group, right? So I would do that. And sometimes it would be at a different church than my parents went to. And the tabernacle wouldn't be in the sanctuary. It'd be like down the hallway. I'd get ticked, and rightly so. And I'd be like, what's wrong with you people? I'd just go off on the parish. I'd be like, this is his house, not our house. And I'd be like, I'd want to like pick it up and carry it over there. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like,
zeal for his house has consumed me.
Totally, right? And I would be telling people like, how many of you practice contraception, right? And people...
You look like you do you?
Totally.
Pornography, you look like one of those.
Dude, totally. Like, I did not... Yeah.
It's beautiful. You should be like that.
Right. With love and compassion, though. I was pretty reckless at some point,
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah,
I was like that too, absolutely. And then I served with Net Ministries. You ever heard of Net? They always give this big talk before you go home about how not to be an arrogant, self-righteous so-and-so.
Right.
Don't go home and be like, we are going to pray a decade of the Rosary before we eat. That kind of thing, Because you're just so on fire. It's hard not to be.
And for me, it was the glory days, like the Pontificate of John Paul II. Just the whole
It did feel like the glory days, didn't it?
It did, bro. And I was just like, it was so awesome. But I needed to mature. I needed to learn a lot of tact and delivery, so.
Golly. Yeah, man. Yeah. Carl Keating said, and I keep coming back to this quote, he's like, we used to go to Rome to clarify the confusion of our parishes. Now it feels like we go to our parishes to clarify the confusion coming out of Rome. It's been
Unfortunately,
tough.
very tough,
man.
man.
Tough.
We're living in crazy times. I had no idea this was coming. The kind of stuff that we're going through right now.
Do you think anyone is still denying that it's crazy in the church? Because it felt like the first few things that happened with our Holy Father, I, along with everybody else, just became an apologist for every single thing our Holy Father did.
Because we love the papacy,
we love
right?
him, and we love him too. But then when you be like, oh, that seems weird, and then you get a lot of criticism for that, is there anyone still being like, no, things are exactly fine?
Maybe there are, but I think a lot of them just want to deny what they're seeing because it's too... It's pressing on the mind when you know what Jesus said, the gates of hell will never prevail against it. And we know this, right? This is the truth. And yet we do live in such a confusing time where a lot of craziness is going on in the hierarchy, in the leadership. Because I know a lot of brother priests out there in the trenches, in the parishes. And I've said to them, like, man, how do you do it? Like when people come up to you in your parish and they say, can we get married on the beach? And they're like, no. And like, but the Pope married somebody on a plane. And they're like,
still no.
Right, still no. Or this, and they basically say, look, I just try and tend my own little garden here with my little flock and be really a father to them. And you do have to sometimes pull away from all the flood of outside stuff because it can really, the negativity and everything can really eat you up. You don't want to deny it. It's there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
You don't want to dwell on it.
You can't dwell on it, man. So, so if there are people that are denying it, or unaware of it, I think sometimes it's just because they're like, look, that's the battle over there or something. I just need to tend to my thing right here at the moment, so.
The way it's appeared to me is, all right, society, we knew this has been going to hell in a handbasket for a while, but at least we had the church. That's what it felt like. We're not that different in age, and we had John Paul and Benedict. It felt like, yes, this is the rock. This is this is where I find my gravity and my foothold. Everything else can be going on around me, but this is safe.
Right.
So when this no longer felt safe, there was nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And that's a terrifying place to be.
Well said, yeah. And it makes it difficult to defend because, I mean, now I have recovered a lot of my friendships from my past life, right? They find me on social media or whatever, and that's usually a trip, let me tell you.
I bet.
And they're like, hey, I've been searching or I'm asking things, but what's happening with your Pope or with this? And I'm like, and then I got to like retrieve the tradition and say, well, before this Pope, okay, never said he was God or perfect or anything, he's a man. And then you got to walk real delicately because you don't want to be, saying, totally sucks, can't wait for the next one, you have to be really pastoral and really with great love and try and say, okay, we do have a situation, but we got this 2,000-year history. It's Jesus is really with us, and we're going through a tough time at the moment. So,
what do you see in the church that's happening that's great right now?
Oh man,
don't ask me that. I'm only allowed to ask you that.
Yeah,
because I don't know. No, I do know. There's great stuff happening. I see it.
There is.
But what's funny is the things that I would point to are like a return to tradition, and that's being squashed. So it's like, never mind.
That's what I was going to say, right? So Yeah.
But you won't squash it. We're like weeds. It's not good luck. It won't happen.
Totally.
Beauty wins. Tradition wins.
Absolutely. Absolutely it will win.
It's young people. I remember staying with this priest up in Canada. This is during Benedict's pontificate. And he said, how sad that Pope Benedict is so out of touch with young people, thinking they're into Latin. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't get it. That's what's sad. Young people are just drawn to it.
Oh, it's impressive to me. Like at a lot of my events that I'm at, there'll be some young people and oh my goodness, I can see like they want to be modest. They want to be pious. The way they conduct themselves, it's awesome to me. Now, it's not huge groups. It's usually pockets, but I'm like, you guys give me so much hope as a priest because this is, to me, I mean, it shows me, it's good to see the fruit every now and then, right? It's hard to go for a long period of time and not see the fruit of what you're doing. So when I see those kind of things, it brings joy and delight to my heart because I'm like, praise God, you know?
And I think I've been thinking about this lately that I've got a couple of thoughts. I want to run them by you, see what you think. I think the awkwardness that we sense in the trads is inevitable when you're trying to reclaim a tradition that wasn't given to you.
Right.
So like I grew up in a church where hockey sticks were brought to the altar during offertory because we offer everything to God or some such.
Yeah.
You know, where I played Metallica at Mass.
Oh, wow.
And like shame on those who let me. Like kind of shame on me, but I wasn't a Christian. So like shame on those who let me.
Right.
So it's like when it's been taken from you and you want to reclaim it, it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
The best analogy I can come up with is it would be like going to an antique store and buying a ancient armoire and deciding that this will be a family heirloom because your parents got rid of everything.
Right.
There's an awkwardness to that.
Yeah.
You're going to naturally be on the defensive a little as the modernist stuff kind of comes in. You're kind of like a Quebecois, the Quebecois in Canada who have to be like violent about using French. Not violent, I don't mean that, but like you have to be intense about using French. Otherwise you'll be overwhelmed with English.
Right.
So in a sense, when people say like those traditionalists are a little sort of uptight, I'm like, well, what do you expect? They feel like they're under attack. I would be too if I felt that way. And I probably am like that.
Right. Yeah. And for me, what you're saying there is so well said. Like, in my formation, I had a very good formation. Great for my religious community was fantastic, and the seminary I went to was fantastic. The Dominican House of Studies in Washington D.C.
Great,
Thomism, the whole stuff.
Yeah.
The one thing for me that I feel that I wish I had been formed in and known was the traditional Latin Mass. That wasn't part of my formation. So it's an interesting thing, though, that now when it seems to be being attacked or being really ridiculed or minimized or done away with on some level, you're suppressed, right? I have a desire to learn it.
It's a great way. It was almost like the worst thing that could have been done if you wanted to suppress. Don't look over there. But
Exactly. And I'm not alone in that.
No.
Tons of my brother priests are saying the exact same thing. And it's not because we're cray-cray and we're just like, no, the Novus Ordo is bad and everything recent is bad. That's not true, right? But I'm just like you said, that wasn't part of my heritage going through formation. Not because my formators didn't want it to be, it's just not how it was done, right? But now I'm like, gosh, I kind of felt like I missed out.
Yeah,
on
me
that,
too.
You know,
me too.
And so.
Yeah. How do we continue to talk about that? What's tough is to talk about it is seen by some as an implicit attack on the Holy Father or those.
Right.
And it's a difficult balance because I don't want to fall into that.
Right. Neither do I. Yeah.
So maybe it's about just like focusing on the beauty. Like Scott Hahn says, he says, I'm a glad trad. We have beautiful Latin Mass here at St. Pete's. It's getting better. We're looking to get like a full-time person there for the choir, and it's happening slowly, but that's where people are in and they're happy and they're.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting too? So I'm the vocation director for my religious community, and praise God, we're getting a ton of vocations, thanks be to God. But I have to say, as I travel around, man, if there's a desire to suppress tradition in the traditional Latin Mass, good luck, because the young guys, they're really into it.
Yeah.
Really. And they're not weirdos, man.
Yes.
Like they just want piety. They want the great love that's expressed in those externals that shows forth. And I get that. I totally understand that. And that's one reason why, I do wear a cassock. I love the cassock. No, I don't wear it all the time, but I love this thing, right? And it helps me to realize who I am as a priest, right? I am not going to be flirting with women if I'm wearing this thing.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? It protects me. So And vice versa too. Although I have known some who
I was going to say
they seem to actually be attracted to it. So you got to be careful with that.
That's why you never want to use deodorant either. So you want to smell and wear it.
I'm a big fan of deodorant though, so I don't know.
Okay.
I'll grow that monster beard and look weird, but some people are attracted to that too. So,
you can't
it's a
win.
no-win situation. Actually, it's funny. When I was an undergrad at Franciscan, the ratio of girls to guys at the school back then probably still
I think
the same.
it's the same, yeah.
Right? And I was like, man, I'm never going to make it through here with all these girls who are like ideal looking girls and want a big Catholic family. So I'm like, I know what I'll do. I grew the nastiest look. I didn't tame it at all. It was like going this way and everywhere. I thought, yeah, this is good. No.
And then it became a hipster thing to do and you were cool again.
So anyway, the young people, they're really attracted to those traditions. And I think that's awesome myself, right? Because the ones that I've encountered, they're not oddities. They're not weirdos. And they're the people that I see as the hope of the Catholic families.
Yeah.
They want to have kids. They want to retrieve all that.
I'm thinking that those in the hierarchy who would seek to dismiss traditionalists as fringe people, they sound like Trudeau dismissing the truckers. Dude, no, you can't do that anymore. We're not going to believe you.
It doesn't work either. It's not working, is it?
It's not working. I hope it doesn't. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
Huh. So what do you do now though if you want to help teach these people who are coming into your order the Latin Mass? Is that not allowed anymore? Or
we're definitely not against it. It just hasn't been the norm for us to do.
Yeah.
So we do have guys who do say the Mass, but for us, it's not going to be the norm of what we do.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky. But a lot of the guys that tend to be really that's what they want to do predominantly, because even the guys who say that they love it, they prefer it, they're not saying that they're never going to say the Novus Ordo or they're totally against it. Most of them actually, that's been what they've gone to in their parish. But because most of them, I have to say probably 3/4 of the men who are discerning these days, my experience has been they've had a conversion of sorts. They went to college or Catholic college and lost the faith or dabbled in Buddhism or whatever, And now they've got it. And I mean, got it. They're madly in love with Jesus and they want to get those traditions back, but they're not poo-pooing everything that's recent, but they just want to recover that. So a lot of them are going to FSSP, right? Miles Christi. They're going to, those kind of groups.
Across the King.
Correct, right? So praise God. And I tell them, great, wonderful, that's fine.
Yeah. But if you wanted to implement that as training, is that even allowed anymore?
It wouldn't be my decision solely. As a religious community, I don't just come in and say, this is what we're doing.
Not like back when you were in seminary, move the tabernacle.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, that's got to go through the formators and everything, and all that. So
there's a fellow from, I want to say around Kamloops, who was just visiting here.
Yeah.
And he celebrated the Latin Mass for the first time at Pete's here.
Okay, right. Yeah, sure. Father Jonathan. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. But what's crazy is my wife used to be with Net Ministries, and they started up a youth ministry there, and he was one of their core members.
Oh, wow.
So my wife and him go way back.
Oh, how about that?
But it is really interesting to see people like myself and others who are very much drawn to the more sort of charismatic movements in the church, which, praise God, I love charismatic people. And I have my days where I can charismatic it up with the best of them. But there is this, even those people are being drawn. I mean,
yeah. It's true. It is true.
Yeah.
And I'm graduated from Franciscan, right? And back when I went, it was very charismatic, right? We'd be fopping it up, at the festivals of praise.
Yes, that's right.
And I love that stuff. Outside of the context of the liturgy, I love that kind of stuff. Going in there and just praising the Lord, man. It's just, and those Saturday nights with the Blessed Sacrament processing through, people are healed, man. Miracles happen, right? Lives are changed. And yet when it comes to the liturgy, I love some piety, man. I love some serious focus and devotion, right? So I think there's a place for everything, and you got to avoid the extremes. And I think that's where we're at right now, is trying to find that balance.
That's that awkwardness. I think
it is that awkwardness. Yeah. So,
well, speaking of awkwardness, Hallow is a sponsor of this episode, and if you don't have Hallow, you could consider downloading it. In fact, why don't you now? Consider it. Good. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. Hallow is a Catholic prayer app. It's the #1 Catholic app on the iTunes store. Got tons of 5-star reviews, and it'll help you pray and meditate. They also have sleep stories and stuff like that. I actually had a nap to Scott Hahn reading from Romans the other day. And so you can choose these people to read these sleep stories, and then you can put like music in the background, like synth music and Gregorian chant and things like that. So if you want to get a month or more, I forget, I got to ask them, free, go to hallow.com/MattFradd by clicking the link below. That way they know that we sent you and they'll continue to advertise, and that's good for me. Okay, it's good for both of us. Win-win. Hallow.com/MattFradd. Sign up, that way you'll get a month for free, but check it out because it's really cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm going to grab my iPad right here.
Sounds good.
Dude, this is fun. This is nice to get to know you this way on camera.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I mean, maybe we should have done it. We should have had breakfast or something. But
Dude, I've heard about you for a long time. Yeah. And I was like, why have I not met this man? So
yeah. So what are you doing in Steubenville right now? I mean, I know you live here apparently, but
I know, right?
So why are you back?
So since I'm the vocation director, I come back once a month for the vocation retreats.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got 13 guys who are arriving today. So right after this, I got to go to the airport for the first pickup of the guys. Okay. Men who are discerning entering our community. So
that's terrific. Mm-hmm. Hey, I want to make sure people know of these books. So we'll put links below if you can, Neil. No Turning Back. This is your story of conversion.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to read it now. Look.
Oh, it's a page turner, bro. Yeah. It's good stuff. That's one of my first books. So
y'all do a great job, can I just say, publishing books. The books are beautiful. The page quality, everything is the binding.
I agree. Yeah, the really people behind that, because it takes a team to do that stuff, and they're fantastic. The typesetting, they're amazing people. But that one, a guy helped me write it. I mean, I wrote it, but he had to clean it up and make it flow and everything. And it's really good. So that's been out 10 years now. Yeah. And then the consecration of St. Joseph.
Can I give you my honest reaction when I heard of this?
Do it.
Honest. And I'm not saying it's good.
Can I kick you under the table?
You can. I'll put my leg out. I'm like, oh God, do we need another? Who else do we need to consecrate ourselves to?
I get it.
I understand. St. Anne, St. Andrew. When does this stop? Yeah. But everybody I have spoken to who has read this book said it's been incredible. I was talking to someone right here in my studio yesterday, and they said that I don't know if it's a soccer team or a something team here on campus. I guess the guys on the team are very rough around the edges, but one of them suggested they do this, and they all did it and benefited tremendously from it.
Nice. Awesome, man.
Despite my initial, perhaps immature reaction.
Shame on you.
Yep, shame on me. Congratulations on this book, not just for putting out a book, but because so many are clearly being blessed by it. What are you hearing from folks? Same thing?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, and there's people who are doubtful at first as well, and I get that. I never forget one time I was at a parish, and the pastor and the associate pastor were there, and we were about to say Mass and celebrate Mass with them, and the pastor was saying, at the end of Mass, we're going to say this consecration prayer. So the associate pastor goes, what are we consecrating ourselves to today? So hilarious, man. And I get it, right?
Yeah.
So,
because it feels like we just finished explaining to Protestants what consecration means and Mary.
Right. Here's Father Calloway jacking it up
here's again another book.
Well, the response to this has been amazing because, we live in a time of crisis in families, marriage, fatherhood, paternity. It's really, people are so confused they don't even know what bathroom to use today, right? So we need like St. Joseph right now. So the response has been amazing because we live in this pornographic, filthy, perverse era. Who's the man who has a chaste heart, lived with the most beautiful woman ever? St. Joseph. And so I've heard men saying to me, and this humbles me, man, that the poison that has gotten into them for decades of self-abuse through pornography and falling into that repetitive sin, that doing the consecration has set them free in a way they'd never been before.
Wow.
To me, that's just awesome, man.
That is great.
Right? Yeah. And then other things as well, healing of marriages, and just women are finding themselves restored in their dignity and their affirmation. A lot of women are super insecure these days because they've been hurt by men, whether a father or a boyfriend and whatever, really wounded, whether physically, sexually, whatever, emotionally. But now they're discovering a good man, right? Maybe they never had that example or that good father. And they're telling me that they're sleeping better, right? St. Joseph liked to sleep, and they're feeling that love from a dad. That's awesome to me. So just for the people listening, because this is super good timing, if people want to do it, it's a 33-day program. If you want it to end on March 19th, the great solemnity of St. Joseph, you need to start it on February 15th, like soon.
Yeah. So what's the date today? 11th. So they've got like 4 days.
You got like 4 days. But the cool thing is, like, if you can't get the hard copy, it's not going to make it in the mail. No worries.
Yeah.
There's the e-version. There's the audiobook. There's all that stuff. So, yeah.
Wow. And you know, I think it's probably true. It's not like this is a novel idea. You're unearthing something that the saints have valued.
That's right. Yeah.
Talk to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, initially I have to say I did think it was a novel thing because I had not read a book with this kind of idea. And I actually asked my friends around the world, hey, did somebody write this in Brazil? Is it in Portuguese? I'm not aware of it. Or the Philippines, Tagalog, some saint over there? No. Poland? Nope. Well, I said, well, the saints have talked about it, like St. Peter Julian Imard. He's very explicit. We need to consecrate ourselves to St. Joseph, right? We need to grow in virtue like him. He's our spiritual father. All children are called to resemble their parents. We do this with Our Lady. We're St. Joseph in this. And many other saints. So I thought, okay, people know about it, but there's no concrete method of doing it. So that's when I felt the Holy Spirit was saying, so you need to do it. So I spent 3 years putting it together.
And am I right in thinking you published this and then it just so happened to be the year of St. Joseph?
Cha-ching, yeah.
Amazing.
So, no, bro. So what a lot of people don't know, and this is hard to be humble about, is I actually wrote a letter to the Pope. I did.
Yeah?
Right? Yeah. In 2019, I wrote a letter to the Pope and I asked him in a one-pager, please declare a year of St. Joseph for the church, because we've never had one. And 2020 was the 150th anniversary of him being declared patron of the church, patron of the church. 1870 was when that was done. So I thought, man, 2020 is coming up. We need to do this. Yeah, my book's coming out, true, but now's the time of St. Joseph, I think, and so let's do this. So I wrote that letter to him. It was hand-delivered to him by a bishop in Argentina on his ad limina visit, checking in every 5 years. Hey, how you doing? Here's a letter from Father Calloway. But
I got 5 minutes, and he wanted me to take up some of that with this letter.
Totally, right? So, hey, what else are you doing, Bishop? So they had a conversation about it. We got pictures of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then the next year, I got a email, which was wild, from Cardinal Piacenza from the Apostolic Penitentiary, which sounds like the slammer in Rome, right?
Does.
Probably used one, but anyway. So the Apostolic Penitentiary, he contacts me and he says, it's going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? And then sure enough, on December 8th, the Pope declared a year of St. Joseph.
That is, wow. What a mercy. Yeah. What a grace.
Praise God. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah, man, you got to do it.
Can I have this book?
All right. Yeah,
or do you need that for something?
No, you can take that.
Because if you don't, I can go get one from the university. But if I do that, people can be like, hey, Pants for the Aquinas guy. And I just can't handle that anymore.
No. That's all you.
That'd be great.
The only reason I'm hesitant is because in 2 weeks, we have the hardbound commemorative edition coming out, which has even more.
And I know, but I got to start it in 4 days.
But that one doesn't have your girl.
Let's talk about my girl.
Yeah. So St. Mary MacKillop.
MacKillop, yeah.
MacKillop, right? Super devoted to St. Joseph. And I didn't know that until the book came out.
Yeah, so for those at home, she's the first canonized saint of Australia who started a religious order teaching children called the Josephites.
Right. So I had known those like headlines, but I didn't know the depths. So after the book came out, people from Australia contacted me and said, Father, you don't have any quotes from Sister MacKillop. And I'm like, I don't have anything from her. Send me material.
What is Australia?
Right, yeah. So they sent me this stuff, and I'm like, this is amazing.
Really? So I've never read it. Yeah, I've never read what she's had to say.
Oh, it's incredible, man. She was super devoted. She took everything to St. Joseph. So in the one that's coming out soon, in a couple of weeks, it'll have quotes from your girl.
That's terrific. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the book's doing it. How on earth did this book do so well? What's your secret other than writing good books and releasing them at the perfect time?
Well,
because it's got a ton of reviews on Amazon.
Dude, as soon as the Pope declared the year of St. Joseph, the entire Catholic world said, is there a book on St. Joseph? I'm like, yeah, baby. Right. And I mean, we've sold over 1 million copies of this.
That is remarkable.
It's in 18 languages now.
Goodness.
And check this out. You'll love this, right? So I got kicked out of Japan. I'm back, baby. It's being translated into Japanese right now, right? So Back in Black, I say, world tour, reparation tour in Japan.
I think you should go back.
Awesome.
Could you go back?
I don't know. I was invited last year, but COVID jacked it up. So
when they kicked you out, what did that look like? And was it like you can't come back again?
They literally, in my passport, stamped something that basically said rejected, right? Literally. And I was kicked out. The only thing is I hadn't done anything that got me prosecuted there. So could I go back? I think I could.
It's a long way to
time.
fly just to find out that you're going to get sent back. Or do you have to get a visa here first to go there? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. But I definitely don't want to be locked up abroad, right? I don't want to be locked up in Japan if that's the case. But So if I disappear, guys, bail me out. Come looking for me.
Yeah.
So we'll see. At some point,
if you start getting random emails saying I need money, it's not spam necessarily.
Right. I get those all the time.
All right. Well, we have we have a ton of questions that have come in from our very handsome and intelligent supporters on Locals and Patreon.
All right.
Very just attractive people, interesting people.
Okay.
Just
wow, you did that well.
I did. Thank you. You're blind like me. I got to wear these. Totally. At first, it was like I can kind of do without it. Now it's like, how come all these words blend together?
Yep.
Okay, well, fantastic supporter. Hannah Rose Shogren Smith says, do you have a favorite image of St. Joseph? Either that you just like visually or that you like to pray with?
I do. I commissioned it. So
is it in here?
It
Maybe
is.
we could open it. I don't know if we can get a good take on it.
It might be in that one. Let's see.
I don't know what your favorite image is, so you better find it.
Yeah, so, I was really disappointed with most images of St. Joseph because he looks like he's about 120 and about to croak. Or some of them times he just looks effeminate. Like, it doesn't look like a dude. So I commissioned a whole bunch of images that show him masculine and strong, and it's not in this one. See, there is one in here that I really love. Where would I hold it? Here?
I guess,
I don't know if you can zoom in there, bro.
Yeah, it
might be a little difficult. It's pretty small.
Doesn't matter. Which one is it you're pointing at?
This one here. Sorry. That one.
Is he holding an axe?
Yeah.
That's cool. Is he standing on skulls? No, I'm just checking.
A serpent.
Oh, serpent. Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful.
Isn't that sweet? Yeah. So that one, there's others that on the website, you can see them. I just like him presented younger than he's been.
Now, I want to. Isn't he generally understood to be an older man in the Eastern churches? And and you know more than I'm actually asking. I'm not challenging you.
Yeah.
Isn't the Proto-Evangelium of James describe him as an older man, a widower?
Yes and no. So it does lean towards that. It doesn't get specific. But the important thing to remember is that stuff is legend, right? That's not scriptural. It's not inspired. So we can gain bits of information from apocryphal stuff, right? Nothing necessarily wrong with it. Sometimes it gets totally crazy, some of those things. But that stuff is not canonical, so to speak.
Right.
It hasn't been, it's not on the same level of scripture.
Right.
So tradition small t in a lot of Eastern churches. But the other important thing to remember with that is why did they come up with that then? It was to defend the virginity of Our Lady. Noble cause, right? What man could live with such a beautiful woman and not have desires of the flesh and want to consummate that marriage, right?
A man with a heart like Joseph, and that's it, probably.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So as Fulton Sheen says, you don't have to be 95 years old to practice the virtue of chastity, right? It's actually not much of a virtue at that point because you're practically dead. It takes a young man who's alive, right, to make that sacrifice.
Yeah, okay, I like that. Sam Mascaro asks, why do you think the devotion to St. Joseph have been overlooked for so long in church history? How can we reconcile our understanding of St. Joseph with that of our Eastern... Well, I just asked that.
Yeah.
So maybe the first one. How do you think the devotion to St. Joseph has been overlooked for so long in church history?
Well, obviously we don't have anything from him in the New Testament as far as like words, right? Obviously he spoke and he said Jesus, he named our Lord. That's what the angel told him to do. But he's a mystery man, right? So we don't know a lot about him. But then add to the legends that did creep in, that he's super old, was a widower, and people are like,
Yeah. That makes sense.
And he kind of got neglected because of that. Certain saints like St. Therese of Avila and others would try and approach it from a more pious perspective. But it's only within the last 150 years that we've really started to unpack him in a more profound way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isaac Cruz says, I've recently returned to Catholicism after being an atheist and then agnostic for more than 15 years. What can you recommend to help understand the Eucharist better and why it's so important for Catholics?
Wow, praise God. I mean, that's great. Obviously, the most important thing you can do outside of any practice or book is to be with him, to just spend time with him. That's the most important. Everything else is going to be a footnote and just supplement that. But get good books. Right? Read about Eucharistic miracles. Read about how the saints died to bring the Eucharist to the natives and had their fingers chewed off doing it. The heroism and the stories, those are edifying.
Yeah.
And then you'll want to imitate. You'll want to be like that in your love.
I'm thinking too of Jason Everett wrote a book. It's not directly about the Eucharist, but it's on John Paul II, and it says his 5 loves.
Okay.
And I know one of those loves is obviously the Eucharist. And I remember reading that and being really inspired by that.
Nice.
Hannah asks, do you have any advice or words of wisdom for couples doing your consecration to St. Joseph together?
I do. So this is something that I didn't think of because I'm not married. I heard couples were doing it so that it would end on their anniversary, whether if they're married on their wedding anniversary or some significant anniversary if they're in courtship or whatever it is, right? That's brilliant, right? Oftentimes you consecrate your relationship to Our Lady, and how beautiful that is, right? Now to bring St. Joseph into that, that's fantastic. It's brilliant. I never thought of doing it until people told me. I think it's...
What about just advice in general to do the consecration? It seems doable in that it doesn't seem like a great deal of text that you have to slog through every single day.
Right. Yeah.
How long
it
does
takes
it take
about
you to
20 minutes a day. There's a couple of days it takes about 30.
Okay.
Yeah, about 20. Yeah.
Any advice on how people can stay the course?
Yeah, it can be challenging, right? People are people. So sometimes you miss a day and people think, oh, I got to start over. No. Just make it up, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
I would definitely say don't leave it for the last thing that you do in the day. Just like your rosary, right?
Yeah.
You're going to fall asleep, right? You're going to be 3 Hail Marys deep and you're passed out. So
yeah. DKV says, it's been many years since I've listened to your conversion story, and I know a great factor was regarding reading of the Apparitions of Medjugorje. What are your thoughts about Medjugorje after the church has condemned the apparitions?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not condemned.
No.
It's not approved either.
Right.
But
I think the local bishop has condemned it.
Yeah, like a previous one, but not even, I wouldn't even say the language of condemn.
Okay.
And trust me, I'm no expert on it.
Okay.
Right. I'm eternally grateful for the impact that it had on me.
Yeah.
But I leave all those decisions up to the magisterium. That's not my call. So I'm grateful for what happened to me. But
I think the thing for people to realize who've been to Medjugorje who may now be doubting the apparitions is that like God still works in Medjugorje.
Right.
God still works in places where apparitions may not be happening.
Right.
I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah. No, totally. That's very important to realize. And, it's funny because a lot of people, they kind of consider me like the Medjugorje kid, right? Because my conversion Medjugorje was a big part of it. Although I didn't go to Medjugorje until 10 years after. A lot of people think that I like immediately jumped on a plane and went over there. No, I didn't. And I've been there 3 times. I haven't been there in a long time now. The fruit that's come out of it is amazing.
It is.
Have there been bad things? Sure, of course, right? That's the messiness of our world and all of that. So, yeah, I'll leave it up to God to determine those things.
I've been there 3 times.
You as well?
Yeah, because I used to live in Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
And that was
so many Irish people.
And that was closer than going to a Steubenville conference. So we just took our teens there. Yeah. My sister had her conversion there. She went to confession. I would have never thought she would convert. And then one day someone said, your sister's at confession. Yeah,
it's amazing because like, it's amazing to me the lightning rod that it's become. Like many people hate it and with a passion, right? And if you're associated with it, you're in that category and they're like, Father Calloway, he's one of those, we can't trust him, blah, 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 blah. Then there's the other people who are like Medj heads, right?
Yeah.
Just like everything is about Medj. And I'm just like, hey, I'll leave it up to the church to decide these things.
Sounds like a healthy way to look at it.
Yeah.
Sergei Phelan says, do you prefer the older or younger depictions of Saint? I'm going to read these before I read them to you. How about that?
Right.
I would love to hear your continued thoughts, says Ryan Pung, on the House of Loreto. In the St. Joseph consecration, it was implied that angels moved it, but I have heard some differing opinions on it from people like Jimmy Akin, who have said it is a family name. It is a family name of angel. Does any of this evidence change your thoughts on it?
Absolutely not. So papal documents actually totally affirm that the angels translated it. That's how they say it, not transport, translated. Maybe it means something etymologically more. And these are written down by popes. So this is not just Father Calloway or other people saying. So was there possibly a family name called De Angelis that was there at the time and doing? Sure, I'm not going to deny that, right? But when these things are written down in official documents by the popes, right, vicars of Christ, not just random thoughts on a plane, official documents, and the saints saying things as well. Our Lady of Loreto is the patroness of aviation. Those kind of things, you got
to take it more seriously.
Yeah, to me, it's not a legend. To me, it's tradition. Small t, but I believe it.
Okay. Cool. Michael, it's always Barclay. It's always hard saying last names. I know I'm ruining all of them. Hey, I'm 23 years old, and I spent my first years after high school doing missions around the world and founding a small organization. I've recently felt the call to be a full-time evangelist and attend uni. This guy must be from Australia.
Yeah.
Although then he says, I'm heading to Franciscan in the fall, so probably not. Do you, either of you have any advice on what to major in? I mean, if you want to be an evangelist, probably theology.
Hello. Yeah, right? I mean, you're going to, if you're coming to Franciscan, theology for sure.
Yeah, and I'll see you here, Michael. T says, no question for me. Please just thank him from the bottom of my heart for his book.
Praise God. Awesome.
How long does it take you to write a book?
Yeah, it takes a while.
Is this your second?
Dude, I got 14 books now.
See, I know what is your name exactly? I'm so sorry. We're terrible.
No worries, man. Actually, you know what I'm doing now?
You must have prayed for humility, and then I'm like, who are you? What do you want?
I'm working on a cartoon, man.
Are you?
Yeah.
Cartoon book?
Yeah. Of St. Joseph. So
okay.
It's going to be cool.
Very good. Like a comic?
Yeah, kind of a graphic novel.
Oh, that's great.
I can't draw worth a lick, right? But this guy I know, a Filipino guy, he is off the charts talented with this stuff. Yeah.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. So I'm doing the text, he's doing the drawings, and so next year it'll be out.
Oh, that's terrific. Joshua Collins says, hello, Father Calloway. First, thank you for speaking last year at the Arizona Men's Conference. Your talk was very inspirational on looking to St. Joseph as a means to be a better Christian man. My question is this: as a new Catholic convert from Protestantism, I understand and fully believe the doctrines concerning Our Lady, but still at times have some uncertainty and mental pushback concerning certain practices or titles in veneration of her. Any suggestions or thoughts on how to overcome this? Thank you.
Yeah, again, I mean, the relationship is going to be key, just to talk to her yourself. And again, read what the saints have done and all those things. Some of them, they've had their struggles, like St. Therese of Lisieux. She found it very difficult to pray the Rosary. She talks about that. Distracted as all get out, right? And yet she persevered, with what I call, she didn't call it this, but this is what I call it because it's Therese, butterfly kisses to God. Right? You're going to get distracted, man. Right? I've written 5 books on the Rosary. I've never prayed a perfect Rosary. I'm thinking about, did I check that email? What's that smell? I'm all over the place. But God will take those butterfly kisses in your distractions or whatever because he's a father, right? And he's not offended when we love Our Lady, right? I always tell people this. I have a mom. Love my mom, right? We rubbed when I was a teenager for sure. But now I love my mom so much. On occasion, when we're traveling together on a pilgrimage or something, people will come up to me and they'll say, Father, your mom is amazing. Is it okay if we buy her some flowers? Is it okay at the end of the day if we have a cake for her, right? I'm not going to be like, I'm so offended, right? No, as a matter of fact, you've got my attention now in a special way.
Yeah.
And if I have it within my power to do something for you, consider it done. You honor my mom, you're honoring me. Right?
Yeah.
It just makes sense. And Jesus has a mom and he loves her so much. Yeah. So it's good.
I think too, it sometimes helps to say what we are not saying as Catholics before we say what we are meaning, so that you're aware of where the guardrail is. Sort of like talking to, say, a friend who might be a Muslim, and you want to explain the Trinity, you want to begin by saying what we're not saying. So we're not saying that there are 3 gods. Once that's firmly established, then we can begin to talk about the Trinity, even with sort of pious, even flowery language, but I've already showed you what we don't mean. And so likewise with the Blessed Virgin Mary, if we say, we don't worship her, she's not God, she's nothing compared to he who is, to quote Louis de Montfort. Okay, well, then I can go on to say a whole bunch of other things, and whatever I'm saying, if it sounds like that, well, then maybe we can clarify, but it doesn't. I don't know. I think that can be helpful too.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what people say about me.
You're humble, man. I like that.
That's that too.
There's so few of us left.
Very humble. Well, this has been a bloody pleasure. I really hope we get to do this again soon. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Anything else you want to point people to? Or
no, I'm good. Just go to Our Lady, go to St. Joseph. Crazy times we're living in. Probably going to get a little crazier.
Yeah.
But let's cling to the truth because it doesn't change, brother.
Yeah,
Jesus is the same yesterday, today,
we
tomorrow.
Might be nostalgic about these days.
Might be underground at that point, but we'll see.
Yeah. Remember those times we had churches above ground? That was cool. All right. Well, God bless and thanks so much.
You too, brother.